Yeah, we're live. It's 8:32. I'm way late. I'm way late and $1 short, at least $1. I was working on the treehouse. The treehouse is coming along. I can't wait. I can't wait to introduce it, unveil it, christen it. I think we need to do the swinging bottle of champagne and smash it into there. You've got to launch it like it's a boat. So we'll launch the tree fort, which will be fun. But tonight we want to talk about 8.1s, because you know what an 8.1 needs obviously is just way more power. And I've already run it. I've run a cam and intake manifold and all kinds of stuff. And a shout out to AMOS, who actually supplied that motor. So thank you for that. And also this is why AMOS is cool, and why you know this is a great thing to meet people out there in the industry that do stuff like this. So I have my father-in-law and my mother-in-law have an RV, and it has an 8.1 in it. I think it has some bank stuff on it, and so it's they use it all the time. It's great. It's a great RV. We've stayed in it and we've gone up camping and stuff. It's really, really cool. But it has an 8.1 in it, and he was, I think, getting it smogged or something, and somebody said, "Hey, there's a problem with these right here." He didn't know what those were, but they were coil packs. And I'm like, yeah, coil packs don't. I mean, usually if they go out, they just go out. And then I looked at them, and what was wrong was they were rusted all the way around. And so where they're grounded and stuff. And so I thought, okay, well, we just need to put new ones on there. I didn't want him to have to go to a dealer or anything. I'm like, I think I got a set of those. But you gotta wait till I go down to West Tech. I said, you know what? Let me make a call. I'm gonna call AMOS and see. He's usually got a bunch of these motors that he's taken from wrecking yards. He probably has some of these coil packs that he would sell us cheap, so that, because he's got a bunch of them. He's only going to use, he's only going to use one set or whatever at a time when he's dyno testing. And sure enough, I could put a call in, and he answered immediately and said, yeah, no problem. He said, just tell me where to send them. I said, look, I got to give you something for him. He goes, no, whatever. You just, and then we got to talking. I'm like, don't you have a new Procharger Supercharger kit? Because I follow him and I've seen his posts on it, and so I'm curious to see what's going on with that. And he's done all the things that are necessary to get the blower installed on there and make it work and stuff. And so I said, you need to. I said, if you want to, I will help promote your kit. So anybody out there that wants a blower kit for an 8.1, AMOS is your guy. So go get that. So shout out to AMOS. And I said, well, but why don't we let's run it on that motor that I have. It's just, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's still his motor. I don't, if I was going to do anything with it, I would just give it back to him. I said, but let's just put the Procharger on there. I said, in that way we can help promote your thing that you're doing, which is awesome, and you're always helpful. And also we can kind of see if you could show the people out there what it does, and how much power it makes or whatever. I said, so it'd be cool. We can run it on the engine dyno. It's an optimized thing, a sanitized version of testing it. He's done stuff. I would imagine he's done stuff on the chassis dyno. I'll have to ask him to see if there are any chassis dyno numbers to go along with that. That would kind of be cool to incorporate that in the video, but I'd like to run it. And again, I'm not trying to make, huge power or whatever. I just want to see what it is, the way that most people are going to run it. Yeah, there will be guys that I don't even have ring gap in this thing yet, and we've already run a turbo on it. There will be guys that put ring gap in these things and ported heads or 8.8 heads or aluminum, Raylar heads or whatever, and really get after it. But most of the guys probably don't do that. Most of the guys have these 8.1s. If they're going to put boost to it, it'd be like Mike over there putting, whatever, 6 or 7 pounds and running it for 600,000 miles in his 3500. And the Procharger would be the same thing. I'd like to run 7, 8, 10 pounds or whatever, and then run it intercooled, and run it on the 85 and stuff, and just kind of see what it does. They're the only thing better than running one of these big motors is obviously running one of these big motors under boost. So, because that's what every big block needs, especially an oversized big block, and a later model oversized big block. That's what it needs, because it's already a 496 or something, and as an 8.1. And what it needs is, it needs some positive pressure to really get things going. So that would be kind of cool to be able to run that. And then obviously we could look at it, and, I'm sure I won't be able to compare it to really at least directly to the turbo stuff, because I think when I ran the turbo stuff, I think we still had the stock cam in it. And now it has that ZZ502 camshaft in it. So now it's all cammed up and wanting to rev and wanting to make power all the way out at, I don't know, 5,000 RPM or wherever. It's not very high. And I do, in fact, I feel like I owe AMOS something, not for the coil packs, but I'll give them a cam or something we'll get things taken care of. I like to help people out. But when I ran his intake manifold, his modified intake manifold for the 8.1, it's all ported and welded and all kinds of stuff. I think I ran it with a 90 millimeter throttle body, and it's got an opening size for a 102. And I don't think there's a whole bunch of power there, but I just don't think I gave it a fair shake. And so I think I need to do that. I think I need to run the right size throttle body on his modified intake manifold. And so the 8.1 would have that modified intake manifold with the right size throttle body. Not that would be even less important as we go into adding boost to it. But NA, I kind of want to see, what happens, how much power does it make with that? And then we can run it and, just put some boost to it. Maybe run it, if we have, depending on how much time we have, we can run it non-intercooled, run intercooled, whatever. And you guys can throw out some suggestions if you want. And let me know anything, but it's not going to be a big bang kind of thing. With the from AMOS. Should we run the 8.1 with the Procharger kit from AMOS? Famous AMOS. Not the cookie guy. The other guy. The 8.1 boost guy. That stuff is all good. It's all good. So now also I want to get the Sprint running. So I want to get it all back together now so that I can take it down and we can get the Haltech on. We've run the Haltech, the Rebel on the LS. We want to run that. And then also we want to get this done fairly quickly. I want to run, they sent a setup to run an RB, and I can hook this up and get my RB25 running because I have the bell housing for it. I think I just need a flywheel. I might even have that. And if I have I can't remember that motor came with, I don't think it came with a flywheel. It might have come with a flex plate. If it has a flex plate, we can drive it with the flex plate. If not, we'll get a flywheel for it. Unfortunately, I can't just go down to AutoZone and get one of those. So I've got to find one. I've got to source one. So if anybody knows where to get one of those, let me know and we'll grab one. Maybe the guys from Victory might know where to get one. I'll have to talk to Jimmy tomorrow. But I'd like to get that, and I want to hear it start up and run. And I could do lots of testing with that. We could run it at all kinds of different boost levels and with intercoolers, without intercoolers, and do injector swaps and do the short runner Grady style manifold, and then do a turbo upgrade and do a header and, do all that kind of cool stuff. It would be fun. And then the thing is, it would eventually just go in the Z, which would be awesome. Jet, what's going on? I'm all in. I'm in Sprint and I'm in Fort and I just all kinds of different modes here. Big Block and Boost going to be good. Tech Talk. Yeah, it will be. It'll be interesting to see. He's already run it. It's already on a truck or something, some vehicle that has that 8.1 in it. So the kit's already on there working. So getting it on there, I was concerned initially about a lot of times these blower kits, and this is the thing that I liked about that Roadtrek Supercharger that we ran on the 5.3 that Jimmy did the testing on, is that it had a separate drive pulley and belt assembly and tensioner for the blower. It wasn't part of the rest of the serpentine system. Not that you can't make that work. The problem with that when we run it on an engine dyno is that a lot of times we don't have all of the accessories. Like if you're putting it on a vehicle, which most people are, and they're not running it on the dyno like Richard does, they're putting it on and they have all that stuff. All that stuff's there because it's there on a running motor. Mine are not usually like that. Mine are usually electric water pump only. So if we had the drive for it, and then the blower pulley and then the tensioner, and as long as that wasn't dependent on anything else, where it has to have the water pump there because the way the tensioner is mounted or anything. You can come up with some kind of bracket or something to fix that. But if we can do it so that we don't need all the accessories, it just makes life easier for us. And that's how I'm pretty sure I'll have to make sure that that's how the I have to ask AMOS to see if that's how the Procharger kit is. That would be nice if it's like that, because it makes life a lot easier. I don't know if I don't think the rest of the accessories are on there on the 8.1. I have to look and see. Big block and boost going to be good. Tech talk, Richard. It's like you're reading my mind. Was that with the 8.1? Yeah, it's a good start. More LT1 Gen 2 videos. I do have that motor. I can definitely do more testing on it. I want to run it now with a carburetor. Saw a few boosted 8.1s around, and they seem to do okay. Yeah, I think that like anything, they can, as long as you do the things that they need, like, you know, obviously ported heads are obviously a good idea. Different kind of intake manifolds. Certainly all of those intake manifolds are designed for, that motor was designed essentially to make torque in big, heavy applications like that RV, like big trucks and stuff. But I don't know that you want to rev it to the moon, but you can certainly rev it higher than we're doing now. It's like all of the big blocks, the 454s and stuff. Those are all very low RPM motors from the factory, but we know that we also can rev those if we put the right parts on it. Big cubic inches and boost. Yeah, that's all good stuff. Getaway. Happy 86th day, everyone. I've been talking about 8.1 all week because it's 8.1 day. Nice. That's right. It is 8/6. I didn't even think about that. That's my brother's birthday. Shout out to him. Happy birthday. In the house. 8.1 versus a Hemi 6.4. Well, one of those is going to make a lot more torque than the other. Is there a root style blower for the 8.1? I haven't seen that. Will, Fidanza has a flywheel? Sean, you have a flywheel? Wait, did I skip a bunch of stuff? I did. What's going on here? Here we go. This would rock in a C3 in a big block Corvette. Big block Corvettes are always good. I was planning to get an LY6 engine, but I got a good deal on L96. Do you think I should get it? And are they the same? Go to, you can look at the direct specs. There's not a bad choice there. You could look at all of the specs on all cylinders on Summit Racing, and they can give you a rundown of every specification on either one of those motors. And then you can decide, hey, this one has this compression or this one has this camshaft or whatever. I wouldn't worry about the things that you're going to change. You're going to change the camshafts. You're going to change the springs. So just look and see what the things that you like or the things that you don't like. Oh, yeah, Getaway, man. I'm sorry to hear that. I'll have to look up Fidanza and see. Sean, can you send me an email? Tell me if you've got one for sale or whatever. Does he make aftermarket heads for the 8.1? Raylar does, and then apparently you can also put the 8.8 heads on it. I've seen a Whipple kit. They did do a Whipple kit way back, and I thought that, I'm thinking that Kenny Bell may have done one way back also. Question for anyone going to be putting in a shop, 40 by 60 or 30 by 80. What do you guys think? Wider or deeper? Does 3 turns from 0 lash to torque down 22 pounds on a roller rocker mean that the push rod is too long? Is this an LS where it's a bolt down style rocker? Sorry if it's an RB20. Yeah, this is not a 20. It's a 25. I would like to have an RB20. I like those because they're small. 3 turns would be way too much on an LS style. Richard, sorry, just got on just as you were finishing yesterday. Like I said yesterday, I want 500 rear wheel horsepower. And so far, the LS157 has 11-to-1 compression, ported 243 heads, and liking for a cam. You're not going to make 500 wheel horsepower with a LS1. That will be very, very hard. It'll be a very, very high RPM thing. Is it true that's recommended to replace the push rods, lifters, rockers, and springs when upgrading a camshaft? No, that's not true on an LS. It's a hard choice. Depends on how many vehicles or tools, etc. Layout's important. Either's going to be decent. Yeah, figure out what you're going to put inside there and then take some measurements on lifts if you have lifts or dyno or whatever you're doing. LS1 bolt down 3 turns is way too many. It's too many by 50% or 100%, depending on how you're doing your math. It shouldn't be any more than a turn and a half. But if I had nitrous, the nitrous can definitely get you to 500 at the wheel. We've done near 600 flywheel with a 5.7, but it took a tunnel ram and carburetors and a really big camshaft and aftermarket pistons that had valve release so we could put a big camshaft in it and ported aftermarket heads. It took a lot of stuff. It's going to be expensive if you try to do it on the motor, but with nitrous, you could just put a cammed LS1 together and put nitrous on it, and you could do that. Love the RB20. Still on the edge of my seat for the RB testing, especially without boost. Lots of debate with my Skyline buddies for years. Yeah, I don't think that an RB25 naturally aspirated is going to be too stellar. I don't imagine. Either way, 2 lifts, 2 posts, and 4 posts, probably 3 cars. That's what I have right now. What parts need to be changed to run high RPM safely? You have to define high RPM. It could mean the whole oiling system. It could mean every part in the motor to run high RPM safely. What's the 8.8? It's a PSI motor, so it's the even bigger version of the 8.1. It's an industrial motor, I think. Maybe used in I think it might have been used in buses and stuff. I got the Camry engine back together. Nice. Sounds like the cheapest way to go. Yeah, nitrous is really easy because anytime you can add, I mean, you can add 100 horsepower with nitrous, like really easy without any problems at all. So if you were at 400 at the tire and now you're at 500 at the tire, and 400 at the tire on an LS1 is not that hard. That's really a good cam. What head units on the 8.1? I don't know. I have to ask AMOS to see what it is. I'm thinking it's a D1SC or something like that, but I'm not sure. Just excited to see the curve and horsepower torque, even if it's low. Almost no real testing on the RBs. I agree. I went down the rabbit hole looking for that stuff. And there's a lot of really, really cool stuff like in Australia where guys are making 4-digit power levels. But that's not the kind of testing that I like. You know, oh, we put these guys, this cam in it and this intake manifold and this turbo that will support 1,000 horsepower or more, and then put good fuel in it and you know, turn the boost up until we made that power. And then we had head studs in it and we did all the things right. That's fantastic. That's great. And did the oiling system or whatever else was necessary and magic about the RB and ported the head or whatever else was magic and necessary about the RB motor. But I haven't seen anybody go through sequencing it to show, hey, look, here's what really happens when you put a short runner Grady manifold on it versus the stock one. Because I know what's going to happen. It's going to be the same thing that happens to putting a low ram versus a Trailblazer SS. It's going to be exactly that. What is an easy kit for power adder for my 2019 5.7 Hemi Ram 4x4 for everyday pulling power for street? Most guys would do a cam and springs and a tune on that, but people have blower kits, I'm sure, for that, and that would be a lot of power. 8.8 is based on the 8.1, but an aftermarket block. I have a choked out 4-cat with EGR California 8.1. I cannot wait to wake up the horsepower tuners and long tubes. Is a California 8.1 different than other places? I thought that long ago people kind of adapted the same smog parts and emission stuff. As I thought that everybody was the same now. I didn't think that the manufacturers made different vehicles for different states. What's the best size turbo to run on an 8.1? Our G42 would be really good on an 8.1. But again, it always depends on how much power you want to make. Is it safe to raise the RPM on a 6-liter from 5,500 to 7,000? Yes, but don't talk about RPM. That's not the important thing. The important thing is how much power do you want to make, and then where do you want to make power? RPM is not the thing. I mean, that will be part of the equation, because as you go up in camshaft or you go a shorter runner intake, those kinds of things, it will want to make power higher. But don't just think about revving. Think about like the power curve that you want. Would 220 trick full of heads and a 228 cam, 36-pound injectors on LS1 make 450 wheel horsepower? Why that make 550? I don't think you'll get there with the LS6 intake manifold. Tripflow advertises 515 to the crank. Is it a manual trans? Maybe you get closer if it's a manual trans. But 515 crank and 450 wheel are not the same thing. It's about 100 horsepower difference between wheel and flywheel. Love nitrous, but it's addictive. You start at 100 and you start increasing until it blows up. That's right. That's what you do with boost too. How hard could I push an L92 with stock bottom end, 1,000 or under? That's normally what I do on an aluminum motor. Does the kit have a choice of head units, or is the i1 still available? Would be awesome to see on an engine. An i1's way too small for that, but I don't know. I have to ask AMOS. I don't even know if the i1's even available anymore. They may have gotten rid of that. Is the 85 upgrade worth it for a 5.7 Hemi? Not probably for a stock one. For a direct injected one, if they have that, yes. For a port injected one, probably not. Although I say that, what I'd have to look at is I haven't been around enough people tuning Hemis. So if you're tuning a stock Hemi, and let's say that the Hemi makes best power at 30 degrees of timing, that's where it makes peak power. If you're running it in the car, and because of all the heat and everything associated with the way that they run that engine, you can only run 24 degrees. And then otherwise you get into detonation on 91 octane. If you put E85 in it, and that allows you to go to 30 degrees, because that's where it's going to want to make peak power, then yes, then you're going to make power. The power is going to come from the fact that you now are giving it the timing that it wants for that chamber design. But the 85 on most NA things, I haven't seen it make a big difference in power, but on boosted stuff, definitely. So on 96 Grand Sport at work today. Nice. Also, just a quick mention, the turbo, or we have turbos there. We have an 800, 1,000, and a 1,200 horsepower versions of the turbos. And then, but the cams are on sale still for right now. The Ripper cam is about $25 or $26 off right now, cam and springs. And the Truck Plus cam is also on sale, and that's $30 off right now for cam and springs. So rush over there and get a cam and get a turbo while you're there. Let's see. L96 versus LY6. I have one of each. The main difference is that the L96 is a newer flex fuel version of the LY6, bigger flex fuel injectors, same valve notches, pistons, 823 head, same cam. Is an L96 then is a VVT motor too, I would imagine? If you have the flex fuel injectors, that's nice, because then you can do the cam upgrade without worrying about it. Now you might not have enough fuel to run it on E85 with the added power from the camshaft that you put in it. but it's good to have those injectors. Actually, you could. Those injectors will support 800 horsepower naturally aspirated. So they'll support a good amount even with the 85. So I take back that statement. They will work. I had 420 wheel horsepower on my LS6 Corvette. How much horsepower does a G42 turbo make with a 6-liter LS engine, and can I control the horsepower while keeping the boost on 23 pounds? You can't control the horsepower by keeping the boost the same. I mean, you could do it a little bit by taking timing away, but the G42 will support 1200. So you could make 1200 theoretically on a 6-liter. I don't know that it will support 23 pounds on a cammed 6-liter because I think you're going to be past 1200 horsepower with that. Okay. Okay, so 8.3. So 150, 256. Yeah, even if your 6-liter was only making 450 horsepower, that's putting you near the limit. If it's more than that, then you're going to be at the limit at 23 pounds. An LS1 for 2000. Not sure if that's a deal or not. It comes with a 02 Camaro with a bad trans. So are you gonna sell the rest? If you could sell the rest of the stuff and get the LS1 for less, that would be good. 2001 LS Camaro with headers and SLP exhaust. Did 320 to the tire. My current project is an 85 Z51. I had one of those. Getaway iron-headed L98 350. This thing is a 4th gen F body. I want to build a track day autocross C4 with an aluminum LS. That's good. Are the Mercruiser fuel rails the same as a replacement for the 8.1? I don't know if those are you talking about a Mercruiser 8.1 like boat engine? Because I'm not familiar with that. Richard, I have a question. I have an LS swap BMW. It's been running great. Then 3 weeks ago, it started smoking bad. I thought it might have been a rear main seal, so I disassembled the engine, put new gaskets on the whole block, and started 2 days ago, and it still smokes. Looks like it's from the passenger side of the block. So you got to be more specific about where it's smoking. Is it leaking oil somewhere onto the header, or is the smoke coming out of the end of the exhaust? Or is, like I said, or is something dripping down onto the header? And that's what the smoke is. With the Lowbuck truck cam smog, and it's not a smog legal cam. So I put my gaskets in the hole, new gaskets. Okay, you got that. Friend of mine, it might be valve covers. Valve covers can definitely leak. Also, the rear oil pressure sensor can leak back there. The valley cover can leak. It'd be real weird if the heads did. My L96 came out of a UPS truck. They had them express fans up until they replaced it with the L8T 6.6. So up until 2020 or so. Yeah, it's pretty late. How much horsepower will I get about with a modified intake and stock everything else? Getting it tuned on Monday on 03 8.1 5-speed Allison. Modified air intake or a modified intake manifold? Saw a gas station sign from Texas saying 93 octane, no ethanol. Do you know if Texas is the only state to get that fuel, and will it make a newer car run better? I don't know anything about that fuel. I don't think I've ever seen that. Whipple makes a kit. Yeah, I've seen theirs. I'm excited to say a buddy of mine is selling me a 97 SC1 roller. Can't wait to get started on it. Hopefully a few weeks or less. What is an SC1? What manual could I bolt onto a C3 Corvette with an 8.1 and Whipple, of course, future plans? I don't know. Is the what transmission came out of the C3? The 8.1 just uses a big block or Chevy bolt bell housing. 2003, 2007 Silverado with LS or upstream O2 square plug or triangular plug. Tend to have two different part numbers. I'd have to go look at mine. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's not leaking visibly oil. It's just smoking. It's coming from the passenger side. Passenger's head. It's a brand new oil pressure sensor and valley cover, like where the exhaust manifold meets the head. Is there anything coming out of the exhaust? Because it can only come from, it could come from the combustion chamber. Like you could have leaky valve guide seals or something, and it could go down into the exhaust. It could go down into the combustion chamber. That normally goes out the exhaust because usually the exhaust manifold is sealed to the head. If that's loose, then you might see smoke come out of there, but you should also see some coming out the exhaust. Did the 2.2 get boost? Which one are we talking about? His ring gap could be excessive, increased blow by if they weren't done correctly. But again, if you have blow by, you would see that have it coming out the exhaust pipe, not where he's talking about. Could be, if it's an LS, it could be, he could be getting stuff in the intake manifold. Yeah, but again, that should come out the exhaust. I'm swapping an engine with a drive-by-wire throttle body on a mechanical throttle car. Is it better to make the drive-by-wire or keep it and change the throttle body to mechanical? Well, what on the car is mechanical? Is the pedal assembly mechanical? Is the linkage in the car mechanical? And then also the most important thing is your computer mechanical and not drive-by-wire? If that's the case, then yeah, it's easier just to change the throttle body than it is. And is your harness a drive-by-wire also, or a mechanical? Because it's going to have a separate TPS and IAC. But if the harness is later and it's designed for a drive-by-wire throttle body, then it's going to have a plug for that throttle body and not for those other things. The Saturn. Okay, yeah, we raced against those, and well, we raced at the same time. Those did race at World Challenge. They were in the class below us, though. I have a 6-liter heads cam making 456. How much more horsepower would I get if I change it to an NA 4.6 heads cam or a 427? I don't know. I don't know what camshaft you have. We've done 425 or something with 408s and stuff. That's not too hard to get. But it depends on how much cam you have and how much head flow you have for the bigger motor, because it's going to want to keep making big power. It's going to want more camshaft. No smoking from the tailpipe. Okay, so you're leaking oil on something then. Or you're leaking exhaust out maybe. T56 swap into a C3 for an 8.1. Big block Chevy in a C3 is good. Radar makes kits for 8.1. Larry Hoffer and Don Taylor have a book out on it. Oh, cool. Try the valve covers first and see if there's a problem. Yeah, just do a finger wipe and see if you can feel oil on anything. See if you fold it over the O-ring. Sometimes when the O-ring gaskets in the valve covers get old and they get oil on them, they want to get big, especially if you've taken them out and try to put them back in. And then they want to bunch up, and then they want to, when you tighten them down, they're just folded. What's the proper way of testing engine that's bought used and has a 30-day warranty? Some guys, I've seen some guys put them on a run stand. What I do is I drive them over from the wrecking yard and put them on the dyno. But you can put them on a run stand, get it in your car and test it and see. It's junkyard engine. I'll be using the original gaskets, 270,000 miles. No, that's fine. That works good. You can run into the rear seals get leaky. Rear main seals get leaky on those. Engine run stand, yeah, is good. I've seen guys do engine stand starts. We've done those. We did that on the Dodge, where you just started on the engine stand. We were able to do that because we hooked it up to the bell housing and hooked the starter up. And we ran it like that. We just hooked the computer, the fuel injection up to it, and hooked the fuel line up to it, and hooked it bolted to the bell housing and stuff on the stand. In hindsight, we should have used like a 4-leg stand and not the tripod one, because it wanted to knock itself over. So that's not good. But I've seen guys do that. I've seen guys start them on the floor too. I mean, if they want to get crazy. Found a ion red line. I'm considering working on it. That's good. Which one is it? Is it a supercharged version or a turbo version? Because that's like the Cobalt, right? I did engine start on a stand. It was so loud. The cheap Harbor Freight. Oh, spun. Yeah, I lost one of the on a tripod Harbor Freight stand. I was moving the 6-liter that we had run that we ended up hurting, and I was moving that. In fact, I was giving it to Troy, and one of the circlips for the wheels, because they got those steel wheels on there, which are awful, came off. And so I start backing it out, and it just, the wheel shoots off and just digs into the ground. I'm like, man, that's not good. Cobalt with supercharged only. Okay. I've seen some funny engine start and runs. Yeah, in Thailand. I like the guys that started them on the ground and just watch them like flip around. I'm like, that's not good. That is not good. How much horsepower gain will I get with a modified intake manifold and stock everything else? Getting it tuned on Monday. You've asked the same question twice, and I've already answered it. And I don't know. I don't know what intake you're doing. I don't know which intake you're doing. I don't know what modified means. You got to give me more information than that. Got 99%. So one person voted no. High performance narrow boat motors. I love watching this stuff from Thailand. I love watching the boat stuff. Box of Diesel, I think, is the one that I watch. And the things are like nicely turned out and stuff. I think it's awesome to see. I mean, they get jacked up sometimes. Those things sail sometimes. It's not good, but they do really cool diesel stuff. And then a lot of the 4AG Toyota stuff is really good. Another question about a Hellcat supercharger for my Hemi, but I found some bill adapters for cathedral heads. Do you think the tiny 5.3 would spin it good as a BTR stage 2 cam? Yeah, you could max that blower out with a 5.3 without any problem. What mileage do you think is the maximum for a used engine? I don't know. I haven't run across that yet. Mine's got 350 on it. Jimmy's, well, mine's got almost 350. Jimmy's has more than 350, and we just put a turbo on that. Dang, I love the stuff overseas. Yeah, it's neat. I like watching that. We used to set it on a tire with a transmission hooked up to it and start a small block Ford 302. See, that's cool. I mean, I've never tried that. That's good. That's a good idea. We use them we throw the engines on tires all the time when we're transporting them, but that's cool that they're and when you have the exhaust manifolds on them, it tends to like steady them. It's like putting your hands out. Would you recommend a low buck truck or truck plus for turbo 4.8, 4L80, 3,500 pound car, or 7,000 RPM street trip? A low buck truck. If you want 7,000 RPM, it'll go there. Dream trip to go ride the drag boats and watch the drag boat racing. Yeah, I just like to go hang out and look at all the cool stuff. I think that would be awesome. 5.3 of the big supercharger. That's not a very big supercharger. I mean, that stock Hemi supercharger is not that big. You know, if you think about the fact that we've done, you know, 12, 13, 14, 1,500 horsepower, whatever, with these LSs, that's not the superchargers. That supercharger can't do that. Until what horsepower can you keep the transmission stock? A stock one. Supercharger really tall. Yep. The Cadillac one was pretty tall too, with the adapters that we had to put on it. But I don't think a Hemi blower is, what is it, 2.1 or 2.2 liters? It's not that big, right? Or are they bigger than that? They're not 3 liters, right? Are they 2.6s? They're not like a 2650. That was a 2.4. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I didn't think it was 2650 stuff. I mean, that's more than big enough to make power. It's just not. It's not overly big for, you know, to be concerned about it. Low 800s. The blower will support that much, certainly. I mean, we made 650 with an M90, so if with a good motor. Don't forget to flip the pistons. That's right. And dimple the ports. Build the transmission to handle the power. Yeah, you got it. That's the thing, is you can I'm gonna build the motor up. Great. Now what do you do the transmission? What do you mean? Well, it's easy to get 1,000 horsepower, but it's harder to get. Nobody wants to spend the money on the transmission. Random question. What y'all like to see in a 2-door Saturn? Is this going to be a channel car? I can't decide what to do with it. A burnout car? Isn't it a front wheel drive deal? Can you do a K-series swap in it? He's back on the videos about that. Who? What is this name? Oh, Uncle Tony he's talking about that again? Have you seen the videos with the Nissan Titan making 1,000 plus? Yeah, I think it made more than that. I thought one of them was up near 2,000 horsepower. Yeah, I think we've pretty well put that to bed. at least in terms of engine dyno testing. Like I said, if we tried it on a transmission, tried it on a chassis dyno or something, there might be something like, you know, it'd be the same kind of thing that we're talking about when we do a test on a light and flywheel and stuff. There would be times when that would be beneficial. It wouldn't be beneficial in a stationary setting, but it could be beneficial in an accelerative setting. And maybe there are things that I'm not aware of that would be beneficial only in a given rate of acceleration. Although in a vehicle the rate of acceleration changes with gear. So the amount of time that it takes you to accelerate from, and in different gears, you're going to accelerate at different RPM ranges too, unless the gearing is exactly the same in every gear, the gear split, but it never is. So you have two things that are changing. Well, you have several things. You're in a taller gear, you have a bigger split, you have more aero load, so all these things are changing. So you're changing the acceleration rate. So if maybe you had a gain in the rate of acceleration between first and second, do you now not have that between second and third, and between third and fourth? And heaven forbid you're doing it in overdrive or whatever. Those are all things to talk about. And I'm open to talking about all of that and even testing all that. Front wheel drive, I was thinking about an LS or J, even a D16, but willing to cut it up for rear wheel drive. Yeah, I don't think cutting it up for rear wheel drive is a good idea, but some other kind of swap that would get it to make a lot more power. Not an LS, unless you're talking about doing an LS4, but a K24 or something, even a J. It's in a book and it relates to offset wrist pin shadow ops. What shadow ops? What's in a book? I know what book that he's referencing when he's talking about this, and I've spoken with Freiberger and Dulcich about it. It's an old Mopar book, and they were laughing at the number of things that are incorrect in that book. So I don't use it's like somebody using the Bible as a historical reference and telling me that this happened. I'm like, that's not the same thing. That's not a science thing. This is not a science thing. I think Calvin said something about 2000 on the 5.6. I thought it was like 1900 or something, and it was quite a bit. Are you looking for regular cab Titans? The problem is, I don't think it's gonna be hard to find cams for the Titan. I don't know how you could get that kind of power with a stock camshaft. K-Series, I've not seen it yet. Tops on the list. There you go. Fairly low mileage, 2006 5.6 and a QX16. There you go. Do you think the ZZ502 cam and springs would be worthwhile upgrade to a stock truck? Take a look at the power gains that we got and determine whether or not that is the kind of power that you want. He claims the 360 is only 60 offset and the 383 has 190 offset, so maybe that helps. Well, I can tell you that we talked to every piston manufacturer out there and talked to Billy Godbold. We talked to every sharp person that we could about it, and they all said the same thing. I would be more than happy to test a bigger offset thing and see if it works. I built my transmission before I built the engine. 727 Kevlar plates, racing gear set. The builder said it'll handle 1500. Good. Then you got more. You got room to grow. I can get a K and a J cheap. Was thinking about rear-wheel drive burnout car, but you make a great case. You could do rear-wheel drive, but that's a tunnel and that's a lot of stuff to get that to work. Okay, swap an all-wheel drive. How much heat does adding a turbo add to the engine compartment? Looking for either a 6-liter NA build or a 5.3 turbo for winter project. Worry about the added heat under a C4 hood, mostly street driven. The packaging the turbo would kind of be the thing in that engine bay. That would be kind of hard. You could do a fairly healthy NA 6-liter or a stroker 6-liter, like a 408 or something. Or a 416 if you do an aluminum one, and a 600 horsepower motor in that car would be really good. A 5.3 turbo could be ridiculous. So it could be 1,000 horsepower. So I make a GoFundMe so Richard can get a 10.3 liter. What is that? Old wives' tale. Yeah, no, I know it's a Mopar thing. I understand it because that's Tony's deal. But when we tested it, it did nothing. When we talked to the guys that know about this, way more than this Mopar performance thing, way more than anybody that was involved in that, way more than Tony, way more than anybody. When we talked to several people, they all said the same thing. We're a piston manufacturer, and if you think that we haven't tried this and thought about this, that the reason that people are doing this is not for power. They're doing it for noise. And this is why all of our pistons, why every NASCAR piston, why every cup piston, every racing piston, every Formula One piston, none of them have offset in them. And that's not a thing. That's what they said. And Billy said, look, if you do the math on it, it changes something. But does it change it enough to change it enough? It doesn't. You can do all the math on the acceleration rates before and after and all of that. And he goes, there's a different number here, but it's so far over past the decimal point that it doesn't really do anything. And like I said, I think that the answer isn't that more offset is the answer. I think that the answer is that maybe we could test it differently on a chassis dyno or rate of acceleration or something to see if there's something there. I'd like to look at that. We could look at more offset, but like I said, none of the piston guys, Weisco and everybody that we talked to, they all said the same thing. They all said, yeah, you guys are wasting your time doing that test. But it's never a waste of time because no matter what happens, we get data. AMOS, what's going on? Yeah, we were talking about your blower kit. So for running the blower kit on the 8.1. So we're excited about it. Richard, you need to get one of the 2.7 GM Turbo Max engines and test it. My stepdad got it, basically gave it to him, take it off the lot, and they said 310 horsepower stock. Oh, that's cool. It's Chevy's huge engine. Is it the 632? I've run 632s on the dyno. If that's the one you're talking about. Same turbo from a 2.7, put it on an LV1. Is it going to be big enough for that? Unless you do, are you talking about doing two of them? Well, between family and friends and here, K-Swap has the most votes. There you go. Doing a 46 RH for my twin turbo 5.7. Well, Prestige, what kind of driving are you doing for your automatic versus manual? I heard from the grapevine the 2.7s are blowing up. That 60-foot time is 1:58. We got 2 more minutes. We're still at 97%. Yes, Procharger. See, Amos, that's what happened. I had 8.1 in my 2004 great plow and work truck. Thirsty but pulled great. Yeah, they make a lot of torque. You don't believe the 2.7 turbo wouldn't be big enough for a DI 4.3 liter? I think that the stock turbo that's on the 2.7, if it makes 350 horsepower and you're putting it on a motor that already makes 300 horsepower, I don't think that's, I think people would want more than that. If that's what I'm, seeing. I need to freight you this 318 Magnum dyno and send it to space with a G42. I just need to run the 360 with a turbo on it. What do I have to put turbos on a 5.3? I found a turbo kit. I cannot find the pieces that go on top of the Cobra. What is it called? I don't know what you mean by Cobra. Do I hear a small block Mopar big bang? No, I'm not going to do a big bang because I'm not going to spend any money on putting heads and all that stuff on the Dodge. I just want to run boost on it. I want to put a cam in it, and we have the stock kegger manifold, and then I want to put boost on it. 4.3 was rated at 285. That's why the 4.8 wasn't made, apparently. This one's ready for boost. Well, making it ready for boost is not an issue because I have to take the pistons out anyway and do the piston flip, the reflip anyways. No way that a big block, small block Mopar gets a big bang before a 4.6. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Need to find a piece that goes on top of the Cobra for the twin turbos. What Cobra? I don't know what you're talking about. Have you guys seen 180-degree headers? Yep. They end up being an unintentional big bang. It definitely could. I mean, I don't know what the motor seemed to run good, and it was definitely repeatable. Definitely. I just want to run a turbo. That's all I want. It's just turbo. Turbo-y goodness. Got 1 minute. Uno momento mas. Well, my Hemi's is done. I'll just donate the Big Bang Mopar parts. I have ported Mopar RT heads. They flow 260. That's it. That's a good amount. Accidentally hooked the wastegate controller up wrong. I think everybody would be really disappointed on this 360 if I ran it with the stock heads and that mild cam and the kegger manifold because it's not going to make any power. Grub. Oh, so you need a carb, not a Cobra. Okay, that makes more sense. So you need a bonnet for the carburetor? If you have twin turbos, you have to have a Y pipe that feeds into that. But the bonnet can be a single one because you have a single carburetor. So the bonnet is like a CS Racing one. They have those. And then if you look online for a Y pipe, that's what they call them. And it'll be two going into a big single. And then you could attach that to the bonnet on the carburetor. And then you attach those other two to the turbos or to the intercooler. A lot of times guys will do twin turbos into this is what we did, is twin turbos with the two ends going into the intercooler, but a single out. And then the single out goes to the bonnet on top of the carburetor. I think 30 PSI will make power regardless. Well, it's not going to do very good if the motor makes 300 horsepower. It's going to be a waste of time if we run 2 bar a boost on that and it makes 900 horsepower at 30 pounds. Yeah. A shark one. Look at that. Look at Lisa brought a shark cookie. How awesome is that? Yep, that's my wife. You need the Hughes air gap manifold. I agree. That is probably a good one. I have a reground stock camshaft. It's at 224, 230. Does that fit stock piston to valve clearance, Aaron? Radar aluminum heads are also during development breath done by David Vizard. So, of course, they're good heads. Okay. You won't get to 400 horsepower with that turbo. Kegger is the choker. How much power will a twin turbo 5.3 make? You can make as much as turbo as you put on it. We've done 1,500 horsepower on LS motors with the right size turbo. We've done 1,300. We've done 1,200. We've done 1,000. It just depends on the turbo size. Richard, how do you think a 283 will do with a GT3582 single turbo? I think it would be fine. I'm imagining that it's not a very healthy 283. It's like a 300 horsepower one or something. I know it is Shark Week. That's awesome. See if you think of it, if it survives 2-bar boost to make 900 horsepower, that'll make a lot of guys happy. Yeah, I don't want to run 30 pounds on a stock motor. That's not good. That's the max you can go. Yeah, I don't know what the available piston to valve clearance is on those. You're running stock push rods. You're running 2 76 millimeter turbos. Well, one instead of you're going the wrong way on this. How much power do you want to make? And then we'll talk about the combination that it takes to make that amount of power. Low boost 283, just fun driver. Yeah, it'd be fun. Caleb, what I would put on there is one of our GTX 3584 RS turbos on there, on that 283. How much horsepower can you reliably make on an L3 block? We don't ever go over 1,000 on those, because then we worry about them not surviving. Helps with the piston in the 318 or 42 down the hole. A 360 was around there. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's low compression. I would rather have it at 0 deck and have addition the piston or the right size chamber to do it right. I'd like the thing not to be down in the hole, but you know, we got to do what we got to do. I think an all-wheel drive on a Bravada would be good enough for boost on a 400 horsepower 43. I think it would be. We drove the GM Race Shop did an old Bravada drivetrain with an LT1 that was making at least that much, and it was all-wheel drive. And so this is before the Cyclone and stuff, and they did one of those as a development thing, and we got to drive it. It was really nice. It was fast. A single turbo on one bank of a V8 just to put people off balance, like we did on the asymmetrical deal. Both of the 318 and 360s on the Magnums are 9-1. I should be going down to see Dulcich. In fact, I gotta send him a message and find out when I'm supposed to come down. Asymmetrical turbo. Yep. Yeah, we did that. I did that video. What compression do you aim for on the turbo motors? I don't. I just go get a wrecking yard and then I put boost on it. So whatever it is, they're normally less than 10-1, but we've run stuff that's 10-1. We've run stuff that's more than that. You just have the right fuel for it. Whatever works. It's possible to make 1,000 wheel horsepower with an F1C Procharger. I'd have to look up the specs on that blower to see if that's the case. I don't know what size that is. We've done that on an F1A 94, and I don't know what the F1C does compared to that. Richard asked him if he has any early 360 Magnum blocks. Okay. I think we're doing it on a 340 or a 360 LA motor, if I remember right. And on that note, it is time to go. I'll see you guys all tomorrow.